What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be doing a 2-round 2025 NFL mock draft. No trades. We have a trades video that will be probably coming around next week, but if you guys are new, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Below my face is my board. It is not predictive. It is the players that I love in the order that I love them. So feel free to go follow me over on X. I post all 22 clips that do support my conclusions over there. And if you do want to support the show, there's a big ticker of all the stuff that's going on, but the easiest way to do that is to go to UnderDog Fantasy using the code HAILMARY when you signed up. You get up to $1,000 in bonus credits when you sign up. They send me $60, full transparency. They're a great brand. I support them. I love them. Let's get into this. Let's have a great time. And also, we have some crazy collabs coming up, and 3 of them are confirmed. Obviously, we have quite a few more that are on the way, and these are the big mock draft collabs. Not talking about the team-based ones, which we have a lot of different guys who are already getting ready for that, so I'm super excited. Hopefully, you guys are as well. So starting out with the number 1 pick, we got Tennessee Titans here, and I blend reality in with my opinion. Most of the time, I do try to make it as accurate as possible. But of course, I'm going to throw some curveballs because nobody knows exactly what's going on. We're not super locked in behind the scenes. And even those who are, there's a lot of deception, a lot of smoke screens. So at number 1 overall for the Titans, it looks, based on the fact that you're seeing Kevin, the biggest telltale sign for me, actually, of the number 1 pick at the moment is the fact that the Titans literally signed, I think it was Zeitler, to a 1-year contract. And to me, they're trying to shore up the offensive line. If you're trying to essentially go BPA at this spot and then go after a quarterback another year, you're not bringing on veteran top-tier offensive linemen for 1 year, right? So it feels very heavily geared towards saying we're going to make Cam Ward work. Maybe they're hearing the offers at first. They're saying, hey, we're looking at the best player available, like going after a generational talent, and then they're seeing, okay, well, if that's the case, we know 2 and 3 are going to be looking at a QB as well. What's their asking price, right? Or what is their bidding price? What are they going to be looking for? And maybe they ended up taking that into account and said, well, honestly, we do need a quarterback. And based on these offers, we don't really want to take the risk of moving down and losing out on our superstar. So, it is what it is. But I do really feel like Trevor Sikkema said this the best. Maybe somebody who might be coming on the show. But he ended up saying people, GMs especially, lie with their words, but not with their money. And I think that's a beautiful way to talk about it. And it really was that Zeitler contract, which is literally 1 year, $9 million. That was the $1 billion answer that I was looking for. And so Cam Ward goes at number 1 overall, causing a frenzy in the next couple of teams who are saying, what the hell is going on? And I do think that the Browns heard, hey, the Titans are probably going to take Cam Ward. So they ended up acquiring Kenny Pickett. No, he's probably not the actual end-all be-all. But that's also why they're talking to Russell Wilson. If you are super confident in your quarterback core and being able to get a rookie, probably would not be making some legitimate moves to bolster your quarterback core with multiple additions. And so I really do feel like they're uncomfortable, and maybe Stefanski wants to go get his guy in Kirk Cousins. We'll see what happens there. But regardless, I do think that they're preparing as well for a quarterback to be taken at 1. And areas of growth for the Browns, you could talk about a secondary edge, but when you bring in Shoyinka, you end up having Isaiah McGuire there, Alex Wright. There's a lot of players that I have a lot of confidence in on this team, and it looks like they do as well, to where I don't know if they really are going to be overly intrigued with the prospect of Abdul Carter over the potential of Travis Hunter, right? You end up looking at him potentially going to be replacing Newsome, because Newsome's going to be asking for some money. He is. And Travis Hunter is going to be a great addition there. But I assume maybe early on they're going to let him be a weapon for whatever quarterback they are going to use. But I think if they're going to be investing in the future, you have Myles Garrett, who was a freak of nature. Now you're going to go after Travis Hunter, who's a freak of nature. And for people who see him at number 10 on my board, again, for Travis Hunter, I don't think he's the best wide receiver in the class. I don't think he's the best corner in the class. I think he's the best DB in the class, that's a very hot take, but I do think he'd be better as a safety even than a corner. But regardless of the point, he's a great player. And if I were not doing it solely on just grading what he is on tape, then I would absolutely have him at 1. I think that his upside and his potential is tremendous. Maybe I should have a board based on purely potential, I think Travis Hunter in the perfect situation could end up being the best player in the class. So that's why I'm still comfortable taking him up here at the top. Of course, there is also that realistic factor, but Travis Hunter, he gets a little bit too much glaze. He also gets a little too much hate, and I feel like the consensus should be a little bit closer to the center of those two, and I feel like it's a little too skewed north at the moment. But at number 3 overall, the New York Giants are sitting here and they're like, fuck. These are the two guys that the Giants really needed to have fall to them. Like, if you don't get Cam, you got to get Trav, right? So at 3, the question is, like, are you looking at Shedeur? Because, I mean, shit, you look at their quarterback room right now is Tommy DeVito. That's it, right? They didn't even acquire Justin Fields. They didn't even acquire like Mason Rudolph to be that number 2, right? And so you're looking at that quarterback situation, and it looks, I mean, they're bringing in Russell Wilson, but even if you do, you're still only 2 QBs deep with no end in sight. I'm scared shitless because a lot of people are saying, like, Shedeur, if the Giants don't take him, is falling to the late first. But the Giants have been royally fucked in this offseason to the point where I think they're going to have to make another, not stupid, because I do think Shedeur's a solid QB. I actually ended up regrading the QBs. We'll be having a QB video coming out in the next couple weeks. But I think he is like a QB2 in this class. And that sometimes needs to be reached on because, in my opinion, it's not a good QB class. And that includes Shuck. That includes Dart. So you could go at 34 with Shuck. You could go with Dart. You could try to throw these guys into the equation. I think a dark horse candidate, if he is healthy, is Curtis Rourke. But, I mean, we'll talk about him when the video comes around. But I think that the Giants are so desperate that they're going to make a very, very boneheaded decision, which is, again, this is no trades. But, I mean, in a trades mock draft, which we will be doing. But again, it forces us to make picks that we don't want to, right? And the NFL teams do not always move off of picks when they feel like they need to make them, even if we feel like they shouldn't. But if I'm Carolina, I'm calling up. If I'm even the Raiders, I mean, Kuntz is on a 1-year contract, I'm calling up as well. Like, to jump the Patriots for Abdul Carter. But regardless, we are going to be going after Shedeur Sanders there at pick 3. Speaking of a 1-year contract from a Raiders edge defender, we have the Patriots who got Kayvon Chase on a 1-year $5 million. And my boy Tristan Kuhn, shout out to him over on X. Feel free to give him some love if you're a Raiders fan. I was saying, like, man, why didn't the Raiders bring him back? And apparently Chaseon's like, oh, well, I don't want to be an edge 4. Get ready to learn edge 3 or 4, buddy, because Keon White's a little bit, he's kicked in the interior, but you still look at that, like, defensive pass rushing wise, he's going to be the 3rd or 4th best option. You also talk about Harold Landry, who could be taking a rebound step there for the Titans, which, again, pretty expensive contract, but Abdul Carter's going to be the selection. I mean, there's no ifs, ands, or buts. The Giants are just, man, I really wish that they were just saying, we're going to make this work. we're going to do what we can for the franchise and not for ourselves, and, just absolutely crap out for 1 more year. They just don't have that leash. So, yeah, but regardless, I mean, it makes it a lot easier for me at pick number 4, and Abdul Carter goes there. At number 5 for the Jacksonville Jaguars, another pretty tough position to be in. In my opinion, it's not easy. Mason Graham is undersized, short-armed. Like, there's a legit chance that you could see Gladstone saying, hey, Mason Graham is our Braden Fisk. It is possible. But, I mean, you just got to look at maybe how, I'm going to try to imagine this through Gladstone's point of view, which is like, how do we rebuild this roster properly through what they did over at the Rams, which, to be fair, was trade said picks. But Tataroa, I just don't think he'll be going super duper high because of the running. I think some teams are definitely concerned with that. It's a tough pick to be at. It really is. A dark horse pick could be Jahdae Barron, right? But you look at the boundary corner situation, there are no boundary corners here at this spot. Again, probably one of the hardest spots to be in. One of the most intriguing picks is Tyler Warren at 5. You end up losing Evan Ingram, or, well, getting rid of Evan Ingram. And then you brought on, not Luke Farrell. He ended up going from the Jaguars to the Niners. But I'm forgetting the name of the tight end that was over on the Rams that ended up coming over for like a 2-year 5.5. But regardless, Tyler Warren, not a bad option here. But I do like the idea of the Braden Fisk. Like, I know Liam Cohen might be like, hey, I'm an offensive guy, I want to go offense. But the Braden Fisk aspect of it all kind of makes a lot of sense. Like, Gladstone's like, yo, I mean, Mason's not as old as Fisk either. And so I'm going to go after Mason Graham. We'll see about it. I mean, again, it's a bad spot to be in my opinion. I would honestly try to trade up for Abdul Carter at this point. Like, I think that the marginal increase of talent for the price of what you'd have to pay is unbelievably worth the stress of finding the snaps to use them. Like, it's at that point. So it's a very scary position to be in Jacksonville. I think it might be the worst pick in the draft. That and then the Panthers. Like, it's the worst pick to be in because you're selecting guys who do not have a bona fide top 5 legitimate claim. But a lot of people have them in their top 5, top 3 even. So I guess you combine that with the most recent success with Gladstone over in the Rams, with Braden Fisk, and it ends up starting to add up. So at number 6, Vegas. It's Ashton Jeanty, right? I think Ashton Jeanty might be gone by pick 4. If somehow, some way, a team snipes, like the Giants are like, okay, well, I'm going to move down with the Panthers. The Panthers have some extra draft capital. They're willing to be aggressive. Like, I could see it, right? And then they also have a previous trading relationship, Brian Burns, right? So you can end up making that trade, and then it'd be funny. The Brian Burns trade, you end up trading a team that ends up pretty much replacing his memory with Abdul Carter. But, I mean, at that point, you might as well go after it and then see what happens. But regardless, let's not waste too much time here for the Vegas Raiders. Ashton Jeanty is not a running back. He is an offensive super weapon. And right now, running backs are getting paid, if they're that good, $17.8 million a year. You look at Saquon's contract, it was extended out, and it might have been like 20 or something a year. It's to balance out the 13. It's supposed to be over his tenure there on the Eagles. It is $17 million per year. And so running backs are no longer super duper cheap. But on top of that, Ashton Jeanty, the only thing that could have him slip past this point is those 9 fumbles. But on an average carry basis, it's not that bad. But it really was that last game versus Penn State, fumbling twice. Granted, 16 missed tackles forced, which I think is incredible. But 2 fumbles in your biggest game, in my opinion, of your entire career, that is where the concern really starts to come in. But I do think the fumbles are more respectable fumbles than guys like Byshul Tootin, who we will not be talking about this episode. But Ashton Jeanty is a very, very good running back. And, you know, he is, again, an offensive superpower. You have him there with Geno Smith and, I mean, Brock Bowers. It's going to be a legitimate force to be reckoned with. At number 7 for the Jets, an intriguing spot to be in here as well. Defensive interior, if Mason Graham slips, that's the perfect target, in my opinion. You look at the players that are available, and there is just one clear option to me, and that's Armand Membu, right tackle out of Missouri. The thing is, if Tyler Warren somehow ended up being taken at 5 because, again, offensive coach, like young up-and-coming GM, and you end up seeing the Saints sitting here without Warren, without Jeanty, and potentially without Mason Graham as well, Armand Membu makes a lot of sense for them. You look at what Kellen Moore was just dealing with. Lane Johnson was an extremely athletic right tackle who also ended up being an extremely valuable asset for Kellen Moore. But, I mean, he's been an asset for far more than Kellen Moore, let's be real. But still, I don't think he slips past pick 9, like at this point. And then, of course, the Jets, I mean, you lose Moses, and it's like, well, shit. Like, you gotta be able to replace that. Your tackles are super duper key. And then now you have Foshnu and Membu. I do think both of them are on a bigger development curve than what people want to admit. But I also think that those development curves end up in a place where you are very happy with them at 7 and 10, respectively. At number 8, we have the Carolina Panthers. And again, I was saying this along with the Jaguars, the worst pick in the first round. Arguably in the draft, especially when you end up like making it as you start looking at at it in terms of like where the value of the pick is, it's probably the worst. So looking at the best potential options here, I might look at Jihad Campbell still, but the amount of people that are literally glazing Jalen Walker to a ridiculous degree, saying that he's almost a lock at 6, like everybody in the world loves this guy to the point where he is unrealistically high. And I have him at 15th overall, right? Like I still have him very high, but you add on to the fact that Shaq Thompson's gone. This is also not a great linebacker class. It's actually a pretty okay linebacker class, I must admit. Most underrated player in this entire linebacking room, Danny Stutzman. Just going to put that out there. He might be a better pure linebacker than Jihad Campbell, but y'all know what I think of Jihad. Jihad I'm like enamored with, especially with the pass rushing ability. But I really think Jalen Walker is like their guy. Because people are talking about him. He also has that edge rushing presence. For me, again, in a trades mock draft, we could try to eventually like adjust, like especially if there is a team trying to look at tight end potentially. Jahdae Barron's an exciting option, but for the Panthers specifically, I mean, Tyler Warren would have been great if you guys didn't continue re-signing a bunch of tight ends. I'm going to end up going and selecting Jalen Walker here. Just people talk about the character as if it's like through the roof, as in teams are like enamored, and I mean like unbelievably glazing this dude behind the scenes. Pause. But it's just, there's a certain point where I think Jalen Walker is an excellent linebacker. He's going to be a perfect replacement for Shaq. And then you also add in the pass rushing element where maybe he's not as refined, but he is still a legitimate threat. And I think you really get a very valuable player where he's honestly just perfect for what you guys are looking for. And if you can't move out of there, maximize what you can get. And I think Jalen Walker is that. I've been stuck on Tyler Warren to the Saints for probably a month now, and I'm still going to do it. I mean, I just don't really see, even with Juwan Johnson, it's $10 million a year. Like, I just feel like Tyler Warren, he may just not be expecting him to be there. And Tyler Warren is not the same type of player as Juwan Johnson. This is going to be someone who is going to be a legitimate every down tight end, early, mid, fourth down even. This guy is reliable. So I personally love the idea of that. Jahdae Barron's a super hot take. You guys do need a boundary corner. Did not think Paulson Adebo would have been dipping, but also didn't think Paulson Adebo was going to be paid the way that he was. I'm going to still go Tyler Warren. I'm going to be like, you got Jack Stoll there, but Jack Stoll is, I'm trying to talk about the depth of the core. Like, you're not going to take in Tyler Warren if you have like 5 dudes on contract, right? But I just personally think that the Juwan Johnson re-signing was a risk mitigation move, not necessarily, kind of eliminating the option for Warren. So at number 10, we have the Chicago Bears, and it's an intriguing spot to be in. Again, remember, there are no trades in this. So I'm looking at what the Bears have done acquisition-wise. They've completely retooled their interior of the offensive line. I mean, literally 3 additions, which are incredible. Okay. The additions in totality are incredible. You could talk about Jackson being a shell of once he once was. I get that, but I mean, this is going back to the system where he had the most success. And then you look at the center position. I know people are going to say Drew Dahlman's overrated. You know what? He's a much better. He's an upgrade. That is the key thing. He's an upgrade that you are not going to look to upgrade from. And the left tackle spot, are you ready to give up on Braxton? But I think the bigger question besides you is the organization ready to give up on Braxton? And I think the answer is no. So I think there are 2 different picks. There's technically 3, because you could talk about that edge room for sure. You could always, because with Dio, I mean, getting paid 16, you still are an edge 3, right? You still could go edge rusher here. But Ben Johnson is not the type of guy, in my opinion, especially with the amount of control that he's focused on, like, dishing out. He's not that type of guy, I believe, to give Dennis Allen his first pick. And the running game is so crucial for the Bears. It's going to piss a lot of people off. But please, before you criticize Omarion Hampton, please go and watch him. I mean, just, you need to. Honestly, I'm going to pull it up right now. In the middle of a video, there was a beautiful breakdown. I think it was it by Dane Brugler? I'll obviously find out in just a second. I tweet way too much, guys. I tweet way too much. But it's just, there are some incredible statistics that I personally think you need to know. Warren Sharp. Shout out to Warren. Incredible mustache. He's the number 2 best running back in the past decade in yards per carry on runs when hit behind the line of scrimmage. And guys, this is like, that's not it. There's plenty more. There's like 4 more facts. But it was my favorite thing about Amari Hampton. He would get hit behind the line of scrimmage and somehow turn it into a gain every time. And this dude, running backs like him, always go in the top 12. So realistically, it makes sense. But he's number 2 in highest percentage of teams' entire touches at 44% of the entire offense. He is number 2 as well in highest percentage of the team's entire receptions at 17%. And he is 96th percentile in explosion score on jumping drills. He is built to be a superstar. And superstars get drafted in the top 12. If you label it as just a running back, you don't take a running back in the top 12. Just like people say don't helmet scout, don't position scout. I mean, I know positional value matters, but you can't end up saying somebody is not going to be good just because of the position they play, or not going to be valuable just because of the position they play. I can guarantee you Kelsey, Gronk, and plenty of others tell you that tight end, even if it's called undervalued position, is pretty freaking valuable if you get it right. And Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry kind of show you that the running back position is pretty valuable if you hit it right. And if there's going to be anybody who drafts a running back high, it's going to be the one who did it before, which was with Jahmyr Gibbs, who we didn't think was worth that high of a pick. So if you're thinking that, learn from history. It repeats itself. Amari Hampton's going to be my pick at number 10. At number 11 for the San Francisco 49ers, and yes, we are doing 2 rounds, so believe me, buckle up. We're going to get going. I think the Niners are going to be a key destination probably for Asante Samuel Jr. to play on that boundary. It was a rumor before, but honestly, based on probably how cheap he's going to be, like he hasn't signed yet based on the current status of when I'm recording this video. But losing Greenlaw makes me think that they're going to be pretty high on the linebacker market. And Jahad Campbell you guys know what I think of him as an edge. For the system that you're trying to run where Saleh has guys who can flex out to wide 9, who also really values athleticism at the linebacker spot, you can't put this all on Fred Warner's shoulders. And Jahad Campbell is literally creme de la creme, what you want to be able to replace Dre Greenlaw. And the thing is, Greenlaw ended up admitting, after he ended up agreeing with the Broncos, the Niners tried to go back and get him, which means they really want this position and they really value it. I'm going to take it. I'm going to take Jahad Campbell there at number 11. I think that he is that freaky and he is that good. At number 12, the Cowboys, also known as the bust center because, that sounds horrible, but because they end up pretty much trading or signing a bunch of former busts. By the way, if you guys are wondering, this is Jeremy Chin, Carolina Panthers jersey. It's just baller. I'm wearing a tank top underneath. Didn't want to pull a full go house on that one. But at number 12, I think Jerry might be intrigued with Tetaroa at this point. They don't really need speed all that much. You look at their acquisitions, I don't think it's very heavily focused in the wide receiver room. Now, if they bring back Amari Cooper, Stephon Diggs, they might value it a little bit less than maybe they should. I also think boundary corner, they've already shown a need for it by being able to trade for Kyer Elam. Don't know if they're going to be giving up on that just yet. You look at Malachi Starks as well, and I think there's a lot of very good options that you can go with. So either way, I think that the Cowboys fans, it used to be a lot worse, but with Tetaroa being here, I think the Cowboys are willing to reach, air quotes, and take the bigger receiver. And, I think there's a legitimate role for Tetaroa on the squad. I don't think he's testing because athleticism-wise, I think he is a step behind a lot of other players. I do think Matt Golden might be a more exciting option, but I do think when you end up having someone who could play that jump catch game, it's very valuable. But if you do want to sub in Matt Golden there, I'm not going to be the one to stop you. At number 13 for the Miami Dolphins, Malachi Starks is speaking to me. The safety room that you guys have currently just doesn't cut it for me. And when I hear somebody like Jeff Ulbrich saying this is the most safe player in the entire class, I can't ignore that. I can't. And with you guys signing James Daniels to such a good contract, $8 million a year, 324. It's just you guys are showing also you could have paid top dollar market for the interior offensive lineman. You ended up waiting and got some good deals. I think they're going to be going after Malachi Starks here. Like I'm pretty confident in that. You need to have someone who could roam the field. At number 14 for the Colts, Jahdae Barron's super exciting. And again, he tested out so much better than expected. But the key thing for me, for the Colts right now, because they ended up doing a great job with Bynum, which is why I think if somehow, some way, Nick Emmanwori gets taken where Malachi Starks was taken, you're not going to take Malachi Starks, because I do think there's a little bit of an overlap there with Bynum, who's on a $15 million a year contract. But I do think that there are two areas of improvement, and that's that center fielder that I personally would want to give to Nick Emmanwori, who can also play in the box as well. Lou's defense, I think, is going to thrive with a Nick Emmanwori on it. That's where I'm getting at. Other areas of growth, I mean, technically speaking, you could go offensive line. I know that you have Tanner Bordolini, right? You have Matt, you guys said it better. Gonsalves, I think that's how you pronounce it properly. But like, I feel like those are areas of growth. You also look at the edge core, and there are some very good edge rushers here. But at the same time, I mean, you guys ended up getting a faller, and that's why you ended up selecting Leatu Latu in the other rounds. So, like, it really is like, do you want to go Will Johnson? Well, you just signed Javarius Ward. So which is the option that would be best? And good job on you guys for signing both Bynum and Ward. Even though Bynum, I think it was a little bit overpriced. There have been more egregious signings in free agency, believe me. But Ward was the biggest one for you guys. I think that's incredible. I'm going to go Nick Emmanwori here and say that you need your deep center fielder with incredible speed, also somebody who could end up flexing into a multitude of other roles. I personally think that is the way to go. At 15 for the Atlanta Falcons, they're going to be pissed that Malachi Starks got taken. Jeff Albright's going to be like, well, I'll be damned. But it does look like you guys might be in the market for defensive back. Jahdae Barron could absolutely play a role like Malachi Starks. Again, it's just the Falcons have done some patchwork on the edge core, which means that they're obviously saying it's a legitimate need. But nose tackle is an area where I haven't really seen the Falcons genuinely increase their capability. And there's like a very limited quantity of defensive interiors in this class that could genuinely play nose. Teams are enamored with Kenneth Grant. It's hard for me to think that they would pass on this opportunity, but Will Johnson is here. I also think that they're going to value that physicality, that IQ, and going after the best player available. So I'm going to go one of these guys out of Michigan. I think Will Johnson might scare some teams due to medicals. And for the Falcons, they might be a little bit scared of the medicals too, because their last third round pick, had some weird body transformation. I'm not going to take this time to crap on Braylon Trice, but after being injured, they might want somebody with a little bit more consistency of health, which Kenneth Grant, in my opinion, is a little bit more of an embodiment of that. So it's going to piss some people off because everyone's like, oh, we need to go edge. Have some patience till 46. I think it'll clear up very soon. At number 16 for the Arizona Cardinals, this one's a really easy one for me. You guys were in the market for I was about to say Kenneth Grant's name again, but for Milton Williams. And so it shows that you guys definitely value that explosiveness on the interior. Walter Nolan just makes too much sense. I mean, I know that defensive interior, you got some guys to patch it up, but it was pretty clear you want a defensive interior one, so we're going to give it to you. At 17, it's an interesting spot to be in because interior offensive line is still not good for the Bengals. And again, you got guys like Will Campbell, who I personally think should be a guard, but the hip flexibility, a little bit scary. So is he actually a guard? I don't know. I feel like he's one of the guys who could legitimately fall very far in this class, but I just don't see the Bengals passing up on him if he does fall here. A defensive interior has been completely revamped. Boundary corner situation is still not good. Like, it is very, very bad. And so I honestly wonder if Will Johnson would not be a bad pick here. Like, you do need someone who is big and physical, and you already have two Michigan defensive backs in that room anyway, so you have some complementary skill sets. And if you let him continue to slip, the next team I can see legitimately taking him, the Steelers. So we're going to let Al Golden get a superstar here who has some injury concerns, but nonetheless is the only reason why he's here. I'm taking a curveball and going Will Johnson at number 17. At number 18 for the Seattle Seahawks, the offensive line is here. I think that based on your lack of focus on it in free agency, you guys are going to be putting a big focus on it in the draft. And with a lot of the flexible players off the board, I do really like the idea of going after someone like Will Campbell, who does have that potential to play tackle, and he does have a lot of very good reps on his tape. You might be willing to, take a little bit of hip inflexibility, core flexibility off in order to get someone who has a higher floor for overall competition. So I think that's probably the route I would go. Other options, again, I don't want to guarantee that, that wide receiver core sucks, though. And trust me, we have 50 and 52. We can address interior offensive line there and address it pretty damn well. I don't know if I could say the same about receiver. I keep forgetting this team is just completely bare bones in the receiving core. I'm going to go Matt Golden there at 18. Again, I think Tetro McMillan could be an option for him at 18 as well if we do end up taking Matt Golden to the Cowboys, but Matt Golden, after running sub 4.3, makes a whole lot of sense. At number 19 for the Buccaneers, Jahdae Barron's slipping again. It's just kind of hard to find a team that's really focused on zone coverage and the shorter arms. You want that nickel flexibility, and a team like the Buccaneers is not there. But on top of that, the Buccaneers showed some desperation. The first player they signed in free agency was Hassan Reddick. And it was a pretty egregious contract, in my opinion, based on the fact that he really hasn't proven to be worth $12 to $14 million. But you look at the players that are available. There are a lot of very good ones. But on top of that, you look at the archetype of player that they just ended up signing. And technically, it is a person with personality concerns, right? Hassan's kind of been a bitch behind the scenes. So maybe they are in the market for James Pierce, who could be slipping because he's uncoachable. Well, he seems to be doing a damn good job. So it's intriguing. It could be a curveball, but maybe that's something, if he starts slipping further, they can end up going that route. But honestly, I think Mike Green could also be that selection. And the reason why is Mike Green's still developing. And Mike Green still is going to be someone who needs that year of coaching, development, and rotation. And this edge core is obliterated. I would like to look at Shamar Stewart here, but it just doesn't make sense because Mike Green, they have already, again, watched the money, not the mouths. And the money is showing that they want a stand-up rusher who can play some extra coverage and play some linebacker. And that's Pierce and Green based on the guys who are actually available at this point. So I think Mike Green's going to be the choice. I think what they really, really want is for Jahad Campbell to slip to this point. I do not think they will have that luxury. At number 20 for the Broncos, you might say, we signed Evan Ingram to a 2-year deal. We don't need a joker tight end. Sean Payton is a master of deception. I genuinely think he did that to have the Chargers not take Colston Loveland. And looking at the players available, I don't see a player that remotely gets them closer to their goal the way that a long-term answer at tight end like Colston Loveland could. It's a $23 million bluff. I honestly think that's what Evan Ingram brings. So you look at linebacker, not available. Another receiver, I don't think it's that pressing for them. You look at I already said linebacker. You look at DB, already the ones that are in the first round have been taken. Offensive line, I don't think that's a first round priority. Running back, those are all taken in terms of first round quality running backs. So you're in a very tough situation, again, with no trades. I personally feel it's a $23 million bluff. And it's designed to have the Chargers not think that they're going to be taking it. They bluffed to get Bo Nix to slip to them. I think they're going to do the same for Colston Loveland. At number 21 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, honestly, I think Jahdae is becoming more and more popular in my mind because, we do not have a nickel back right now, and we have Darius Slay coming in, so we might be shifting more to a zone coverage, or more to a heavy zone coverage, more Fangio-esque. And Jahdae Barron's perfect for that. And at 4.4 speed, he is someone who loves to get into the passing lane. This is someone who can end up being a really big asset for the Steelers. Defensive interior absolutely is also on the board, but none of the players that are available right now are really intriguing to me outside of Tyleik Williams. And honestly, he'd be a good nose. If we end up taking him in the first, I'd love it. But we also got to realize we do not have a second round pick because we just got DK. And what is going to be available in the third? Probably some good developmental defensive interiors. Do we have time to develop a defensive interior for a year? Yes. Do we have time to test out whether a corner can last or not? A lot more difficult. And I'd prefer to take a shot on corner here. Jahdae Barron, after running 4.4 and sub 4.4 at that, with the elite zone skills he has and us bringing on Darius Slay, I really think this could end up being a very profitable move there for Pittsburgh, both on the boundary as well as in the slot. At number 22 for the Los Angeles Chargers, kind of got eviscerated, but Will Campbell's here. I don't think they're going to pass up on him on the interior of the offensive line. They're kind of doing a bunch of patchwork as it is. And so we are seeing the slip of the offensive line, but I do think right now Will Campbell is being heavily overrated. And I don't see him going that high because a lot of teams at the top of the second could also get almost equally as talented players. So for the Chargers, you're kicking him to guard, which is worth the risk at 22 because he has great mobility. He's great physicality, and there's a lot more untapped potential of Will Campbell than like appears to the eye, but you really don't want to take that swing if you are a tackle needy team. And if you're a guard needy team high, most likely A, you can get it in the second, but B, there are other pressing issues that might be a little bit more in terms of the value to your roster. At 23 for the Green Bay Packers, man. I mean, honestly, you guys are in a very unique spot. I still think a boundary corner is pretty pressing. Like, the more that free agency has gone on, the more pressing your corner need has become to me. But also the edge core. I don't really see a legit, like, edge 2 on your team. And I just think that Donovan Ezeraku, even though he took a big step up in terms of production this year, I think Jeff Hafley is going to love him. And they should go wide receiver, but I just don't see the organization wanting to go after wide receiver. So I think their focus is heavy in the trenches, and they're going to do that with Donovan Ezeraku at 23. At 24, for the Minnesota Vikings, revamp their defensive interior room. Good for you guys. Revamp the interior of the offensive line as well. But an area that you guys need to go and develop a little bit more is that corner room. Isaiah Rodgers, I love him. He should be a corner 3 in that room. Byron Murphy, great job. So you have that going on. But again, you have so many smaller corners that you need someone who has that height when you do face a 6'4", 6'5" wide receiver who does have some speed. And to me, I don't know why people are not talking about Trey Amos enough. He ran a 4.43. He's a legit corner 1 with very little questions. And he's presumed to be a legitimate late 1 weapon for a team. So this brings the physicality. He is over 6 foot. He's at 6'1". He ran a 4.43. He is explosive and he is very strong. And I really like what he could bring to Minnesota there. And I just think that that physicality is going to be exactly what you're looking for. Maybe you could take a swing on Ben Morris in round 2 if the hip doesn't look all that well. But again, get some height. I mean, I've been saying this to Arizona as well. Get some height in your corner core, man. 5'3" and an attitude. That's the whole entire talk right now. It's like, no, get some height in there. I think Trey Amos is that dark horse player that can go round 1. At number 25 for the Texans, let's get offensive line. And we're going to go after Kelvin Banks. Y'all know what's good. I mean, apparently speaking, like they feel confident in the tackles that they have. I mean, let's just be real. If you just said, hey, our tackles suck, and then somehow, some way, Banks, Simmons, Campbell, all of them are gone, you're going to look like an idiot if you continue passing on tackle because the value's not right, right? Like, let's just be real. I think that there is a good chance you guys will be looking to still bring in some competition. Worst case scenario, Kelvin Banks plays at guard. Okay? Like, that's a worst case scenario. I love Ibuka with CJ, but this is the Sewell Chase meme. And it's like, protect the quarterback. At 26 for Los Angeles, some good weapons all around. With Shamar Stewart here, it's hard to say no. Again, with trades, some things will shift up. Like, obviously at 24, I would end up moving up for Shamar Stewart. There's a couple other teams in here as well that I would like to be able to move back with, to where I think it would end up shifting what the actual picks are going to be. But we're going to pick this up a little bit just because you and I both don't want to be here forever. But for the Rams, I really think Luther Burden's a great choice. I mean, just reliable. Same thing with Emeka Ibuka. Like, you can't go wrong with either of them. And the question is, which one do you want? Like, which flavor ice cream do you want? Like, both of them could probably be primary slots. But Emeka Egbuka fits the Rams to a T. I think he's a better blocker than Burden, so we'll be going after Egbuka there. At 27 for the Ravens, I mean, guard could be a choice for him. I honestly think they should try to find some way to be able to pay Mekhi Becton, but that's just me. Edge rusher is certainly on the board right now, and I think Mykel Williams can't slip any further than this. Even though they haven't done a great job developing edge rushers in the past, sometimes you just have to continue taking dart throws until you end up hitting the bullseye. At number 28 for the Lions, a lot of one-year deals, and especially in that edge room, I think that is legitimately perfect for a player like Shamar Stewart, who I do think is he might be the athletic ideal, but he also is somebody that I think needs a lot more time to grow and develop. At 29 for the Commanders, Luther Burden would be very intriguing as well. Obviously, you have addressed kind of the tackle situation for the time being. Interior offensive line is always a question, but looking at the other options, I do think edge rusher is the area that you will focus on. And I think Nick Scorton and JT Tuimoloau are going to be the biggest focuses here. But I like Nick Scorton, man. Even when he drops down to his old playing weight at Purdue, I think this is a very good option and a very high floor move. Corner is also an option, but again, I think that the Commanders, I do think, are going to be focused on the trenches a little bit more. And then on day 2, they kind of snipe those guys on the boundary. At number 30 for the Buffalo Bills, another team that really hasn't addressed that wide receiver position all that well. Josh Palmer doesn't move the needle for me necessarily. I don't think he does for you guys either. But you guys got Joey Bosa. That's a good start. You guys could end up still developing that. Without Rasul Douglas, I do think corner is going to be in the forefront of your mind. And I'm looking at it. You got Rebel here, but of course he's coming off an injury. You got Azareye'h Thomas here, who's big and physical and young, and Darian Porter, who's a little bit older, but he's running sub 4.3, who also ends up having great footwork and great explosiveness. And I mean, this is somebody who had one of the best coverage grades in the entire country, did not allow anybody to catch the ball versus him. I think he's going to be a very, very useful weapon, so I'm going to take him there for the Bills. I don't think age is going to be a big issue for them. Right now, they're in competition mode. They need to get the best player available. Somehow, some way, the Chiefs are on the board with Luther Burden and Josh Simmons slip into them, which I think is some bullshit. But, I mean, it's literally my mock draft. I'm complaining about it. But I think Josh Simmons is the pick. I don't think they let him slip any further. I don't think they can allow it. Just take him at that point and then see what happens. I'm just worried based on the fact that he hasn't continued creeping up in mocks, that the medicals did not look great. So that's the reason why I have them slipping. But the Kansas City Chiefs, their left tackle spot is atrocious. They need to go after it with every ounce, every fiber of being that they have. With Philadelphia at 32, and remember, we are doing 2 rounds. I'm regretting saying that at the beginning. But regardless, for the Eagles, a lot of routes to go. Safety, unfortunately, not one of them that I think is all too profitable. I'm looking right now, and I think the edge core is the way to go. Howie ended up saying he doesn't like any sort of off the field concern for the most. Well, to be fair, he was talking primarily about female abuse, and James Pierce does not have that on his record. Some other guys do, but not James Pierce. But Braden Swinson, Tuimoloau, the thing is you need someone to be a stand-up rusher, and Braden Swinson's the best at that based on the guys who are still available. Looking at the other options, Luther doesn't fit the team. I don't think they're going to take defensive interior based on the fact Moro Jomo literally had a 17% pass rush win rate. Interior offensive line doesn't make any sense for this team. It's a weird spot to be in, but I personally think that you are going to be looking more towards that edge room. And I really trust in Braden Swinson on this team. And I know it pisses some people off, but Swinson's going to be the choice. Maybe you can toss in Pierce there. But Pierce as well, people are literally talking about him in the 3rd round. I'm it's intriguing. But regardless, the Browns ended up going after Travis Hunter in the 1st. Could look at a quarterback here, but honestly, I think they're going to let that issue push down the line. Tackle still, in my opinion, is a long-term concern. But, I mean, with Luther Burden here, you can pair him up with Trav, and that'd be a very intriguing option for you guys overall, because especially when Travis ends up transitioning to corner, which I do think that's a guarantee, especially with Newsome wanting some money, then you're going to use Luther Burden as your primary receiver there. With Cedric Tillman, he flashed, ended up getting hurt. Moore's gone. I think that they honestly are going to super load up on the firepower. Luther Burden goes at 33. At 34 for the New York Giants, first pick was Shedeur Sanders. Could have went Luther Burden to kind of give him a Travis Hunter. But offensive line wise, I do think that like they absolutely could be looking for a future offensive tackle. You could go after Donovan Jackson and kind of get that guard hybrid. Corner wise, I feel like you guys are relatively set to where you're not going to be spending early picks on it. But I mean, looking at the areas of most pressing issue, honestly, defensive interior probably is that. Like like a legit DI2 is probably that. I do not honestly care about Golston that much. I'm going to go after Derek Harmon here and see how the chips fall. At number 35 for the Tennessee Titans, went Cam Ward in the first. God bless. Interior offensive line and tackles have now been secured. Edge rusher, James Pierce kind of bringing him home doesn't sit too well with me. I do think a wide receiver is still on their radar. And you look at Besh, you look at Higgins, and honestly, I think that Besh is going to be a great fit for this team. Maybe in round 3. Well, you guys don't even have a round 3 pick, but I mean, maybe if Restrepo continues to slip, you can look at that to get him back with Ward. But like Jack Besh being like your Nuke Hopkins type, I think that's just so valuable. And Jack Besh, to me, is the best receiver in the class. So I'm going to be going after that and fortifying your overall core. At 36 for the Jaguars, went Mason Graham in the first. We got to get something firepower-y on the offensive side. And honestly, Gray Zabel is incredible value here at 36. I'm grabbing him in a heartbeat. Can play center, can play guard. I'm calling it a day after that. At 37 for the Raiders, went Ashton Jeanty in round number 1. You guys have got some good placeholders at corner, but I don't know if you guys have the true answer there. Wide receiver as well. I do think if you can go after Io Maynor, if his knee is looking good, that's a good choice. You can look after Higgins. Higgins as well is a very reliable X receiver. Like, again, how many targets are you going to be throwing their way, though? Versus on the boundary corner spot, you got Azareye'h Thomas here. Again, Max Hairston, you can talk about what happened on March 21st or 25th, 2021. You can feel free to go look at the University of Kentucky crime log to be able to find out more about that or do some more research on your own. But I think that I'm going to trust that Ben Morrison's health is at a bigger question mark. I'm looking at Azareye'h Thomas here, and I honestly think that's going to be your best bang for your buck at this point. He's young, he's physical, he's big. This is the foundation that, he can end up playing the Davison Igbinosun role for, I guess Chip Kelly. I mean, you look at, Chip Kelly's on the offense. But I was like, you know what? I could have tried to make an Ohio State reference there. I was like, but that was not my reasoning behind it. I was like, all right, that would have been a cool one, but Azareye'h Thomas ends up going at 37 nonetheless. The Patriots are sitting here at 38. And guess what, motherfuckers? We got left tackles available for days. And so I'm going to go after Josh Connerly here. You can go after Ursary, but I think Connerly, in terms of the in-game play, has less questions to be answered for. Chicago Bears went Amari and Hampton in the first. Edge rusher is probably primarily the key here in the second. They don't like, Poles doesn't like character concerns, so that's why I'm skipping out on James Pierce. I'm going to go after JT Tuimoloau, who is just rock solid as a legit edge 2. I'm perfectly happy with that going forward. At number 40 for the New Orleans Saints, went after Tyler Warren in round 1 and ended up paying your edge defender in Chase Young an inordinate amount of money. Now, a lot of people like Darius Alexander to this team. I respect it, but I do think that corner as well as edge are going to be super duper key. And honestly, Ben Morrison at this point, we're going to lean a little bit into the fact that maybe the medicals make teams question it. And his grade, he's number 3 overall before the injury. Of course, 2 hip surgeries do drop you, but I am no doctor, hence why I do not shift guys for injury. I'm going to go after Ben Morrison here. I mean, he's a physical press corner, and I really like what he brings with that. I mean, people talk about his balance when he presses. When you hear that, I'm like, are you serious? Like, there are so many issues that corners have. If you're talking about someone who might need to sit in their heels more because he goes all out when he presses, like, give me a break, all right? Like, give me a break. But for the Bears, you gave Grady Jarrett a 3-year contract. I don't know if that continues. I don't know if that, like, truly solves your interior defensive line issues. Like wide receiver, if somehow, some way Luther Burden slips, that'd be a really good guy for the slot. You guys signed Olamide Zaccheaus, smart move. I don't think safety is a good move here, maybe in the 3rd round. Not a bad option to go after Arianti Ursary and have him develop to be the left tackle. I'm going to throw that out there, but for this time, I will be going after Tyleek Williams to be able to play on the interior, which is a great pick for the Jets that I ended up sniping. It's like my favorite combination, Membu and Tyleek. But I digress. For the Jets, honestly, James Pierce might just be too good to pass on. You look at Hairston, again, you have those questions with him. I love Tyler Booker as well. Honestly, I think Tyler Booker is one of the best players in the class, but could slip due to the athleticism concerns, which I think is the reason why I've had him slip in this one. Also, good players fall in the draft all the time. It's a consequence. But, like, honestly, it's a weird spot to be in for the Jets. Receiver-wise, they definitely could try to look at someone like Jaden Higgins. I mean, you don't have your like true X-build big receiver anymore, which you were hoping for in Devontae Adams. So, honestly, Jaden Higgins is a good move, and you give Justin Fields a reliable target. We're going to go after that route. Number 43 for the Niners went Jahad Campbell in the first. Honestly, could go James Pierce here. Not going to lie. That's kind of fucking fire. I know the offensive line needs some work. Tyler Booker's here, but that's kind of fire. We're going to do it. James Pierce and Jahad Campbell into the mix. I mean, again, you're not really expecting it, but you end up getting it. At number 44 for the Dallas Cowboys went Tetairoa McMillan in round number 1. I don't think you'd end up passing on this in round 2. We have Tyler Booker here, and I'm going to select him to be that long-term option at guard. At 45 for the Indianapolis Colts, took Nick Eamon-Warry in round number 1, which is my dream pick for you guys in here in round number 2 back in the day before he ended up testing out like the beast that we kind of all knew that he was. But here at 45, I'm going Femi Oladejo, man. You pair him back up with his former teammate in why the hell on earth? Why did I forget Latu's name? But you pair up Latu and Oladejo again, and you got the definition of finesse and absolute savagery with Oladejo. Best run defending edge in the class as well. At 46 for the Falcons went Kenneth Grant in the first. Femi would have been great here in the second. Honestly, there are still so many good edge rushers on the board. You can't really go wrong. So, looking at the player that you brought in, which is actually one of the few Georgia guys that you've ever brought into the building, I feel like, you can look at a larger edge rusher for sure. I'm looking at Umar Mielen here, who's more of a pass rushing specialist, and he does have some run defense capabilities for sure, but I feel like at 46, you got to take some type of swing, and so we're going to go after Princely Umar Mielen. At number 47, we took Walter Nolan in the first round for the Cardinals. We're looking at... No, I'm just kidding. You guys did a great job solving your edge problems. I still think offensive line is such a key issue, and when you have the Ohio State interior offensive line, or not interior, just the offensive line coach in general, it makes too much sense to go after Donovan Jackson there to be able to play some tackle or guard, depending on what you want. Dolphins, Malachi Starks in round 1. I think you guys are trying to make a play for Joey Bosa. You could try to go after someone like Jordan Birch here, but I just think there's just not, it doesn't make enough sense to me. So I still will be fortifying the interior of the offensive line, in my opinion. You got 2 of those spots filled out. I could look at Urzuri here, but you could wait till round 3 for it. Other positions that you guys could target, honestly, a wide receiver is not a horrible idea. Corner, in my opinion, again, not a bad idea. And if you want to take the potential chance of Hairston, I mean, again, it's been 4 years since there's been some shit going down. I think it's worth it. Let's take a shot on Hairston, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, linebacker-wise, to be fair, Demetrius Knight's pretty damn fun. Demetrius Knight's a very good player. That's a good dark horse pick for this team. But I'm going to go after Max Hairston. I know over Savon Revel, but Max Hairston brings that speed. Again, we could just hope that it's in the rearview mirror. Then we got Will Johnson at number 17, but here for the Bengals at number 49, they need to protect Joe at all costs. They got to do what they got to do. Urzuri is certainly intriguing, and honestly, it's a great potential future option at left tackle. I'm going to go after Arianti Urzuri here. At number 50 for the Seahawks, we got Matt Golden in the first, and honestly, we kind of did get screwed a little bit on the interior of the offensive line. I would trade back to do this, but I have a second-round grade on Anthony Belton, so I'd be looking at him pretty heavily. Outside of Belton, though, let's look at some other positions. You could definitely go for a boundary corner, too. And Savon Revel is incredible value at this point. We're going to go Savon Revel here at number 50. The Broncos ended up going after their Joker and Colson Loveland. Feel free to go and hear what I had to say about that before. We're going to be going after running back here at 51. And I think home run hitting ability and pass protection are key. And he's going to get another Joker here in Travian Henderson. Seattle Seahawks, again, I was talking about it. This is a player who I have a very, very high grade on, and that's Anthony Belton at guard. I don't know why people don't love him there, but he fits the mentality of a Seahawk. He is a road mauler, and I think teams are going to take him far higher than what people expect. And he has left and right tackle versatility, as he showed at the Senior Bowl. At 53, Buccaneers went Micah Green in the first. I still think they could be looking at corner here. I do just think that the value has just dropped off way too much. You went after edge in the first. This is where I'm going to be looking at linebacker pretty heavily. I'm going to go after Demetrius Knight Jr. He's really, really solid. High-end run defender as well. Very high floor. 54, Green Bay Packers took Donnie Ezeraku in round 1. Again, the corners ended up being just completely depleted, but I do think wide receiver is on the market. And Io Maynor, I know the injury could be a big scare, but the vertical ability of Io Maynor is worth the risk. You got the Chargers going Will Campbell in the first, really solid offensive line power for him. And now, you could look at the tight ends. I think you can wait till round 3 minimum for that. Edge rusher, I personally think is still on the board for y'all. Like Jordan Burch would be really fun, but you guys can end up waiting to be able to get Josiah Stewart as well, which I think might be a better choice. So looking at it, boundary corner, you could end up trying to look at that as well. It's not great value. As you can see, it's not a good spot for you guys to be in. Could try to get like Quinshawn at this point and like kind of get him for a longer term option. Not going to necessarily work out the way I think that you guys would want it. Honestly, edge is becoming like my favorite pick here. Like, not about, because I love Jordan Burch, and I think that his physicality and the ability to kick inside as well as out, I think he can be both a even and odd front, and as well as outside linebacker. I'm going to go after Jordan Burch. I think that the athleticism is incredible. And last year you also took someone who is a little bit flexible in that regard in Justin Ogbegbe, and Jordan Burch is like a billion times better than that. At 56 for the Bills, honestly, Darius Alexander's not bad at this point. You went after Darian Porter in the first. Darius Alexander's ridiculous value. Same thing with Xavier Watts, but like Darius Alexander is from Toledo. He's used to the north. He's used to the cold. I think that it's going to be a great move. And he's, again, an older prospect, but you are in win now mode. I'm going to go after him. Best player available. At 57 for the Panthers went Jalen Walker in the first. We're going Xavier Watts here in the second. I know you got to eventually go after some wide receiver talent, but Xavier Watts is too good to pass on. Houston Texans took Kelvin Banks in the first. This is a team that probably wants to go after a receiver. Xavier Restrepo is not a bad option at this point. Very reliable, always open. But I also think they might go double up on the offensive line. And I feel like people are underrating Jared Wilson and Tate Ratledge at this point. So we're going to go after Jared Wilson for that center capability. Incredible testing as well. At 59 for the Ravens, took Michael Williams in round number 1, which is really, really good value. But boundary corner-wise, they still could be looking at somebody, again, just like I love guys like Jalen Smith and such. It's just, woof. Realistically, the value is just not there. Of course, you could go wide receiver as well. They are the type to just go best player available. So looking at the best players available, I do think Restrepo might be in that room, but no, I can't imagine them doing that. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Ozzy Trapilo's in this mix as well. Ugh. This is not a good spot for him. Actually, safety is a good route for them to go. They do roll 3 safeties, and God dang. To be fair, Makuba's being criminally underrated. This dude is a freaking baller. If you don't put him in the pure slot, this guy is an absolute savage. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to throw a curveball here and go Andrew Makuba in round 2. At number 60 for the Lions, took Shamar Stewart in round 1. He ended up being a faller in this one. But interior offensive line is a move for the Lions. And with Tate Ratledge here, I'm going to go back to my old but gold selection for him there. At 61 for the Commanders, went Nick Scorton in round number 1. Ended up kind of getting screwed here in round 2 for the cornerback position. But I can honestly see someone like Ozzy Trapilo coming in over Brandon Coleman. That wouldn't be a bad option for you guys at all. But again, wide receiver wise, God, this class is not good. It's just not that good. I like the depth of it to where you can get some legit stars, but you guys need an RB1. Let's go Quinshawn here. You guys do need an RB1. At 62, you went Darian Porter, Darius Alexander. Is there another D that we could end up selecting? Alfred Collins. I don't know. But again, we already addressed pretty much 2 key defensive positions. We might want to take a swing on someone who's high ceiling. Not many guys available that I find all that exciting. I'm just gonna be honest. Like, it's not a good pick. Just like it's not that great. I would trade back for this. But Jalen Royals is gonna be the guy who I do select. When he was at 80%, he was just absolutely cooking dudes in one-on-one. He's great after the catch. He's in the 4.4s. Like, legit high-end potential here. So I'm gonna go after Royals, and he also has a year to be able to grow and develop. But let me know what you would have done there. At 63 for the Chiefs, we got somehow Josh Simmons to slip to us again at a certain point with how horribly you've done this offseason at addressing the left tackle spot. You got to do what you got to do. But when you end up losing Tershawn Wharton, it ends up making me think Omar Norman Lott or TJ Sanders, because underweight, undersized, but also great penetrators who also are very underrated overall. TJ Sanders, I think, is very underappreciated, and I think he'd be a really good addition there for you guys, especially since at corner, you end up getting Fulton. At 64 for the Eagles, and ending off this mock draft, I went Braden Swinson in round number 1. Again, safety is a really solid selection here. I just think that in a perfect world, you wait till like round 3 for Jonas Sanker. Like, it's not a great spot, I must admit. And at this point, you might want to take a swing at Ozzie Trapilo. Like, I love Ozzie Trapilo. He is technically my tackle 1, like my pure tackle 1. But, Like, I want to give you guys a good pick. Like, wide receiver is not a need. Tight end, you could talk about it because you are potentially going to be trading away. There's at least rumors of it from Jordan Schultz trading away Goddard, but I don't see that being a pretty smart move. Again, you could try to get that future tackle in like Ozzie Trapilo there, but that's also a 2-year project. Probably you could try to keep the window open doing that, and then boundary corner, there's just nobody good available. So this is like the key position to trade back, and I think that you should. The only other position I think you can end up getting some snaps at is defensive interior, and I'm going to go Omar Norman Lott because gap penetration. It's like a perfect Milton Williams replacement at 293, but I really do think that you need to trade back at that spot. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching and bearing this with me. I love you guys. See you on the far side. Peace.